Well, Garland Nixon here. It is very obvious by now that the U.S.'s plan was to facilitate the loss of life for a lot of Slavic people and then sanction Russia and take them out economically. But I don't think that's going to work. Let's talk. Hello there, Garland Nixon here. And of course, time to talk again on Facebook and Rockfin. For those of you who enjoy the channel here, make sure you are also a member or a subscriber at least over at Rockfin, because at any given time they could toss me out here. All right, so let us go. And I think I may be wrong. I tried. It's possible that super chats may be back, but I saw something that said super chats may be back, but we'll find out at any rate if someone is kind enough to do a super chat. All right, so let's go. Well, if you really look at the U.S. plan for the war, right? The U.S. plan for this engagement in Ukraine was, it seems pretty simple. To draw Russia into this thing, to get to number one, they couldn't win. They were going to build up a military base against, just turn a country next door to Russia into a military base to threaten Russia with, right? They were going to threaten Russia with this military base. They were going to be able to get eventual nukes in there. They were going to get inside of Russia's first strike capabilities. And of course, Russia looked at it and they're like, wait a minute, you guys killed the intermediate nuclear treaty, which means now you can have intermediate nukes, and Ukraine's asking for nukes. So you want to put them in Ukraine where they're 5 minutes from not Moscow. That ain't happening. Yay, super chats are back. Thanks a lot, Kinky. All right. And of course, on Rockfin, you can do tips. So I really appreciate it. All right. So that was the plan. The plan was either way, either we can be extremely militarily threatening to Russia and get inside of their nuclear umbrella, right? Their ability to defend themselves from nukes, or we can draw them into this battle, and this was the immediate plan, and use that as an excuse to sanction the hell out of them and wipe their economy out. So in the near term, it was we're gonna draw them into this fight, and when they do that, as they're trashing the lives of literally hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians and turning Ukraine into a pile of rubble, which was the plan. The poor suckers and idiots in Ukraine thought that the people there, that the West was on their side, that the West was, going to go ahead and set them up and train them and arm them. And then they were going to fight Russia. And then the West was going to join in, and all together they were going to fight Russia. Boy, were they friggin' idiots. Once again, the U.S. Empire suckered some people in, took advantage of them, and threw them to their deaths. As ask the Kurds about that one. Okay, so the plan, if you think about it, really was an economic plan this time. They obviously, what it appears is that they were going to threaten, they were going to get the Ukrainians to threaten an attack on the Donbass, and to maybe even do it, but at least threaten to begin an attack on the Donbass. That would draw the Russians in. And they felt the Russians will probably only attack in the Donbass in eastern Ukraine and defend that area. It won't get too big. And we can go ahead and sanction the daylights out of them and wipe their economy out in no time flat. I mean, just the most vicious sanction regime in the history of the world, and they're done. That was the plan. And they didn't see any way where that wouldn't work. So realistically, in that they don't give a crap about the lives of Slavic people, either the Ukrainians or the Russians. They were to be wasted for the UN Empire. Those Slavic lives, all people, including Europeans, their lives, their livelihoods, everything is to be sacrificed for the good of the U.S. empire, for the neocons and their neocon insane plan of world hegemony. All right. So the problem is these people are idiots and ideologues. So they got what they wanted. The Russians came in, but the Russians are going a bit further than they wanted. And the Russian army is better than they thought it was. They thought, oh, we'll train these people up and they'll be ready and they'll give the Russians what for, and they're getting wiped out by the Russians. And the best that the West could do when it came to the Kinetic War was to launch a narrative war, was to launch a online war where they censored people on Twitter for telling the truth, and where they just like constantly had, there's another, it was like they had a false flag factory basically in Ukraine. But so early in the conflict, and I'm getting to the economics, early in the conflict, the Russians were focused on the kinetic part of the war and their military objectives, and ultimately which would drive their political objectives. Right? They were focused on that, and the U.S. empire was focused on controlling the narrative, and both worked. They were able to control the narrative for a long period of time and do all of these false flags and things. And the Russians were able to control their military objectives. And even while they were controlling their military objectives, the U.S. empire was able to say that they're not. And there were people that actually believed it, right? And so they, from the perspective of what they wanted, everybody was winning. But the reality was the real game for the U.S. was to take Russia out economically. So that of course, the old stupidity, neocon way of thinking, their economy is going to fall, their people are going to freak out, and they're going to take out their leader. And Putin falls, and then we go in and we plunder the resources of Russia. That was the plan. They don't know Russia real well. And when it comes to military, and they were like, we're going to win this on the battlefield. And I'm thinking, yeah, you're going to defeat Russia on the battlefield? You ain't been studying history. That's not an easy task. Tell me the last person that did it. You might want to ask the ghost of Hitler and the ghost of Napoleon about how that works. That usually doesn't work real well. Okay, so Russia's plodding along, doing their military thing, setting up the battlefield, going along with their plans. The U.S. is saying, oh, they didn't reach this. They didn't take out Kiev. They didn't win in 27 days, and they wanted to do that, so they're losing, and the Russians kept doing their thing. But something interesting happened, because the real war, the real plan for the neocons was to take the Russians out economically. But they're idiots, and they didn't stop to look at they live in a narrative world. Let's talk about this economics. If you look at it, the narrative world, the world of discussions and narratives and false flags and false news stories and bringing in so-called experts to give you their opinions, right? That's all fake, right? But when it comes to the U.S. empire, isn't that a great metaphor for the economic system? A system of derivatives, of magic, a system of asset-backed securities that the people that are selling them don't even know what they are. Right? It's all a fraud. So the economics of the U.S. empire, people say the West, I just say the U.S. empire. The economics of the U.S. empire are the same as their way of fighting a war with the narratives. It's magic. Nobody really knows how it works. How's it supposed to work? So what? Think about it. I remember early in this thing when people are like, the U.S. is clearly winning the information war, and I thought, well, what do you get out of that? Nobody ever defined what you got out of winning the information war. We know what you get out of winning the Kinetic war. In a military conflict, old school, old-fashioned military conflict, what do you get? You take ground. You take a meter. If it's a meter of ground, you take that, you hold it, and then you take some more, right? The Russians were fighting an old school conflict. What do? We take a town, right? And they didn't go over and bomb the town flat and kill everybody in it and then go occupy that and then go on to the next one. No, they went in, they fought house to house, they took that town, and they said, that's now a Russian town. Now we're going to put in Russian banks. We're going to change everybody to the ruble. The Russians paying the pensions. We're going to put up Russian signs, Russian flags. That's Russia now. They took old school military. They took turf, meter by meter. And when they took it, they kept it. That's old school war. The U.S., hey, the Russians bombed, killed, did the maternity hospital, whatever, right? And then within a couple of weeks, that narrative had died. So when you looked at what was going on, you're like, well, the information war versus the Kinetic war. Give me the Kinetic war. That's what I'm voting on. I'm betting on. because you actually get ground and you keep it. There's no ground on the internet. There's no ground on Twitter. So you won on Twitter. You censored Garland Nixon. Look, right on YouTube, I just got super chats back. Yay, boy, they won a big one. Some schmuck named Garland Nixon. Nobody knows who the hell I am. I mean, in the real world, in the world of this war, I'm a nobody. Oh boy, they had a big victory. They took super chats away from me for a couple weeks. I didn't think they were ever going to come back, and I didn't give a damn if they didn't, because this is not what I do for a living. I mean, I try to do this to keep my channel going, and to keep everything I'm going, get a few dollars in to keep my channel going, to keep the stuff I got going. But I didn't have super chats, and so I wasn't going to shut up because I didn't have super chats. Thank goodness I got them back, and I've got the people on Rockfin who are giving me tips there, and I've got people sending me all kinds of, not all kinds, but on PayPal, I've got Patreon, so I've got people that are helping me keep the channel going and keep this stuff going and to build it out. And I'm putting money aside to do some more big things that I, hope to be announcing soon. But bottom line was, what did they win by demonetizing my channel? And demonetizing some of the other channels? They didn't get a victory there. Russia took ground, and they're keeping that ground. And guess what? A lot of that ground has gas fields. That ground grows wheat. It's some of the most fertile ground on earth. That ground has coal. They have ground and they have resources. Those are, you can put a dollar figure on that, right? So they were winning. They were getting dollar figures. Part of the, see, people talk about the economic war as the sanctions and all of this, right? But there's another part of the economic war. In a war, after it's all over with, if one side actually took ground, and that ground has natural resources or some kind of resources, guess what else? What is the value of this? They got ports, Mariupol, and they're going to get Odessa. They're going to get ports, huge ports. So they're going to get grain fields. They're going to get coal. They're going to get gas. They're going to get ports that they can use. All these warm water ports they can use that don't freeze. They only had one. The Russians only had one warm water port, and that was what? Sevastopol in Crimea. That's why they weren't giving up Crimea. But now they're going to have a whole bunch of them. So now they're going to actually have things that you can put a huge dollar figure on. And they ain't giving it up. So people talk about the economic war from sanctions and blowback, but they don't talk about that the kinetic war is something to talk about. Now, if you're just going to blow things up with your military and then afterwards you're going to leave, okay, you get nothing. But if you're taking ground, and that ground has coal, and that ground grows wheat, and that ground has gas fields off the coast of it, and all that stuff like they do, they're getting a whole lot of natural resources, and they're going to make out very, very well for years to come. Because after this thing is over, there's going to be people from all over the world calling. You know what they're going to say? We want more wheat. Hey, can we get some of that steel that's made in Mariupol and wherever the hell? They got steel plants. They got industry, right? And within those cities, right, you've got brain power. You've got doctors and physicists. You've got people that were designing things. You've got all kinds of stuff. You are acquiring resources that will make your country more powerful. So before you even get to the sanctions, physical resources Russia's getting. So they're winning there that nobody's getting back. That's a win. Nobody is talking about that. That is a win. Huge win. I mean, probably trillions of dollars will win. All right, now let's continue. Let's look at this. Let's why don't I share something with you right here if we're talking about the economic war. Let's see what we're looking at here. Let's see what we're looking at here. Well. Gazprom capitalizes on gas squeeze hurting Europe. Russian gas giant Gazprom is benefiting from soaring prices in Europe, even if shipments to its biggest market are now lower, according to the CEO. So, well, now imagine that. You work less and make more. Oh, they really hurt the Russians. See, what they didn't think about was they were disrupting the global energy market. The energy market is global. If you disrupt it, right? If it's hard to find umbrellas, and this company sells umbrellas, they need to sell less umbrellas and make more money, right? Let's go on. Let's look down here. Gazprom's year-to-date gas supplies to Europe has fallen by several dozens since Miller, that's the CEO, Alexei Miller, of Gazprom said in a speech at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, the old yearly SPIEF. However, regional gas prices increased many times over the same period, right? So what he's saying is this: yeah, we're selling less, but the prices have gone through the roof. And listen to what he says. I will not lie if I say we don't feel offended, Miller told the gathering. You have a company and your company sells something. You got a product, you sell a commodity, and you got to push this commodity. You got to move this commodity, right? The price of the commodity goes up and the demand goes down, but the price goes up. That means you can sell less commodity and make more money. And what do they say? I will not lie if I don't feel offended. Who wouldn't? That's a win. So in reality, what happened? The dynamics created by the sanctions gave Russia a giant win. I don't know if you've been paying attention lately. Russia is awash with money. They can't spend it. They got so much money coming in that they don't know what to do with it. So here's my point. But what's it look like on the other side? What's it look like? Let's go here. Here's a good one. U.S. stock sinks to lowest in a year. The market drops to bear territory following the Federal Reserve's historic rate hike. Let's go here. Russia warns of potential gas disaster for Germany. Further problems with pumping units may lead to the shutdown of the Nord Stream pipeline. What's that all about? Let me tell you. Germany gets most of their gas from Russia, as does a lot of companies, and as do a lot of companies in a lot of countries in Europe. So what Russia said recently, and I'll get rid of this and we'll chat. What Russia recently said was, look, we got a problem. We get these gigantic turbine parts for our machinery that pumps this gas, and we need to do maintenance. And this stuff was made by Siemens in Germany, and we need parts, and Siemens says the parts are only serviced in Canada. However, Canada has sanctions. So due to the sanctions, Canada can't send the parts because they can't service these parts, repair them, perform routine maintenance on them, and send them back to Russia so we can keep going. So we've got to cut down the amount of oil of gas that we pump. Now, it could be in any number of regions. Think about this. If you've got parts that have to be repaired every 100,000 hours of work, every 50,000 hours of work, whatever it is, right? And you can't get parts, you got to cut them that back because you're like, well, if we do 50,000 hours of work, I'm just using a number, 1,000 hours of work every year, then we got to make that 1,000 hours of work last out to 3 years because we can't get our parts. So we'll have to shut down. So what did they say? Due to the sanctions in Canada, we got to shut down, you slow down your gas. So I've heard anywhere from 20 to 60%. And other countries too, a couple of other countries are getting their gas slowed down. Now, meanwhile, Germany had a great plan. And their plan was, we are going to fill all of our underground tanks with gas. So we'll be straight when next winter comes because, we're going to have more and more sanctions against Russia. And we're going to prepare for the sanctions against Russia. And now all of a sudden they got a big gas slowdown. They can't fill their tanks. Now, if we're honest about things, Germany flipped out and immediately said, you're doing that on purpose, Russia. How dare you? You're doing that so we can't fill our tanks up. You're lying, you're screwing us. Now, as we know, I try to be fair and reasonable as I can. It's possible. It is quite possible that I'll put it like this. It's possible that Russia's telling the truth, that they really need these parts. It's possible that they're completely lying and they're just doing this to screw Germany. And it's possible that it's somewhere in between. But let's just say, for the sake of this argument, that they are doing it to screw over Germany, that they're like, hey, yeah, Germany, what we're going to do is we'll give them enough gas that they can keep making it, but not enough that they can fill their tanks for next winter. They ain't getting ahead of us. Screw that. Okay, let's say they're doing it. Let's be honest about this. You guys are doing everything you can. You're trying literally, openly, unapologetically, you're trying to destroy Russia's economy. It's like, what are you trying to do? We're trying to destroy Russia's economy. We're trying to wipe it out, starve the people, tear their country limb from limb. Okay. And let's just say the Russians are like, well, you know what? We're going to cut your gas back. Oh, no, I can't believe you're going to do that to us. Really? I can. In fact, I would be shocked. I'm only shocked they didn't do it sooner. You are in a war of attrition, and you really think that you're the only one that can fire at the enemy? Hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to fire a shot at the enemy. Pow. Oh my God, they returned fire. I can't believe it. Well, you better believe it, Germany, because I don't think it's the last time Russia's going to return fire. It may be that they need the parts. It may be that they're just trying to screw you, or it may be some combination of both. But whatever the case, even if they are trying to screw you, it is a war of attrition. Your enemy is going to fire back. You're lucky they haven't completely cut you off, but they're not going to let you build your stores up for next winter. No, you're going to have to burn that bridge when next winter comes. They want you in a hell of a jam when it comes to next winter. They want you to come crying and crawling to them and begging them, because they already know when wintertime comes, you're going to be in a hurting manner. And it seems to me they're going to set it up so they're not. Let me put it like this: they ain't going to give you a soft land in Germany. You can get outraged all you want, but the reality is you are firing at them, and they're going to in a war of attrition, and they're damn sure going to fire back. And that's where we are right now. So now look at this. Russia says Europe faces $400 billion in costs in higher energy prices. So think about this. We're going to get you, Russian. We're going to fix you. We're going to sanction you. That sanctioning that Europe is doing to hurt Russia is going to cost them additional $400 billion in energy prices alone. Now, what does that happens with those energy prices? What happens next? That means that it's going to cost way more for your industry to run, which means your industry is not going to be competitive with the US, what little industry we have left, with China, with India. Anybody who has industry, you can't compete with them because your energy costs are too high. Your underlying costs are too high. It costs you too much to produce anything. Who the hell is going to be able to buy a Mercedes? They're high enough now. But they're going to go way up. Parts way up. You're not going to be able to, which means eventually you ain't going to be able to stay in business. So here's what has happened. This economic war is lost. It's lost. The kinetic war is lost. The economic war is lost. And now the bottom line is this. You've been hit with fully automatic weapon fire, and you're laying on the ground and you're bleeding out. You are bleeding out, and you ain't bleeding slowly. Let's look at this. And this is a key. Ukraine conflict has to end with diplomacy, U.S. Kiev says it won't back down, encouraged by Western Washington's weapons. Washington's in a world of trouble. And what have they been saying? They've been saying, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give weapons to Ukraine forever. And remember, we're going to use this to weaken Russia. We've got to weaken Russia. Again, that was the economic war of attrition. We're going to take Russia down, and they're screwed, blued, and tattooed, and we're never going to stop, and blah, blah, blah. And now, as they notice that the Ukrainians are disappearing as a people in the eastern Donbass, there ain't going to be nothing but Ukrainian women left, because all the men are going to get ground into mulch. I mean, what a sad state of affairs. I just don't think that history will be kind to the U.S. empire in hindsight when they look at the reality. And here's the problem. There are people on the inside that I believe that will talk. I believe there are going to be people in the Ukrainian government who are going to eventually, when this thing goes over, say, let me tell you something. We were trying to tell the Americans we don't have the wherewithal militarily to stand up to Russia. They said, keep fighting. And we said, we're losing people. Please, we've got to stop. And the U.S. said, keep fighting. Keep fighting. We've got some more articles coming out in the Washington Post. We got you covered. And they're like, we're losing 1,000 men a day. You're good. You're good. In the end, it's going to come out that this was a moral failure by the United States on an epic level to throw generations of men in Ukraine into a meat grinder. And when the Ukrainians, had a deal for Boris Johnson to fly there and to say, whatever you do, don't take that deal, keep throwing these guys into the meat grinder. And at some point, it's going to get worse, because they're going to say, okay, Russia, we're ready for a deal. And what happens if Russia says, we ain't? Nah, We'll just keep going on with the war and take everything we want. We don't need a deal. We don't trust you bastards. Never mind. What are they going to do then? I think they may find out at some point. So let's look. As high-ranking White House officials argued the conflict in Ukraine has to have a diplomatic solution. Oh, wait a minute. What happened to weakening Russia? What happened to Russia has to lose? Russia can't win. Now, high-ranking U.S. officials, perhaps in hindsight, all this business about Russia has to lose, maybe we were a little out of line with that. Perhaps maybe Russia could not win and not lose, and we could call this thing off and everybody could go home. Hey guys, let's work it all out. Let's be friends. Perhaps things were said in anger and heat that none of us really meant. Let's just move on and we'll call it quits. I don't think the Russians are going to take a bite off of that hook. At any rate, the U.S. will continue to help Ukraine, listen to this, to the maximum extent possible. I think we know what that means, don't we? That means they're yanking the rug out from under them. Yeah, we're going to help you as much as we can, which is really none. Okay. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said Thursday, first on the battlefield, and then, listen to this, ultimately at the negotiating table. We think this thing has to end with diplomacy. Really? Gee, what an interesting change and turn of events that we have here. It's gone from Russia must be defeated, they must be weakened, they must be taken down. Putin, for God's sake, this man can't stay in power. He's got to go down. This is over. The Russians are going to lose. They're losing. The Ukrainians are wiping them out too. We think this thing's got to end in diplomacy. Good luck with that. Sullivan was speaking at the Center for New American Security, a Washington, D.C. based think tank that's funded by Northrop Grumman and Raytheon. Let's see. Anything else? While NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has suggested that Ukraine might have to give up some territory for peace, Sullivan said such a decision was entirely up to Ukraine. We're not going to be pressing them to make territorial concessions. We think that's frankly wrong. Here's the thing about it. Again, it's bullshit. The entire world, see, that's the thing about it. You're gaslighting the world. The entire world knows that the so-called leaders of Ukraine have no agency whatsoever, that the Victoria Nulands and Joe Bidens and Jake Sullivans of the world are telling them what to do. Come on. They had a deal with the Russians in Ankara, in Turkey, and Bojo flew there and said, and the Russians even said, we had the makings of what was going to be a decent deal. And the Americans and Bojo flew in and said, hey, don't take the deal. The Russians were like, hey, that's up to you. We ain't hurting for a deal. We don't need one. We're winning. Remember? Okay. Sullivan's comments came after an NBC News report which claimed that some U.S. and European officials were, listen to this, increasingly concerned that the trajectory of the war in Ukraine is untenable and were quietly asking President Vladimir Zelensky to temper his hardline positions that no territory will ever be ceded to Russia. That's all funny, hilarious, because ceded to Russia, the Russians are like, they've changed the flags. They've taken the ground. They've changed the money. They've changed the street signs to like Russian, welcome to Russia sign. When you go into like these, hey, welcome to Russia. And these idiots are still like, I may be wrong here. I'm just throwing that out there. We're just throwing out some feelers right now and running a few things up a flagpole to see if anybody salutes. But I suspect that in order to get a deal, we may have to give up a few meters of ground, maybe, a cornfield or something like that in eastern Ukraine. I think if we do something like that, I think the Russians will, they'll be okay with that. They're taking they're thousands of miles of territory. They're grabbing, they've got taken seaports. They got ships now going in and out of them, airfields, and welcome to Russia signs. And you guys are sitting around like, perhaps we may have to give up a little bit of ground. Perhaps you've already given up a whole lot of ground. And that ground has very, very valuable economic resources. Again, get back to it. If nothing else, the Russians have won the economic war by seizing territory that has significant economic resources. But we can see this, as I said, how else have they won? Gazprom's making a fortune. They're making a fortune in oil, in commodities, in wheat, in everything they sell. The prices of the economic sanctions of all paradoxical things have driven up the costs of the commodities, the prices of the commodities that Russia sells on the market, all of them. So Russia's sitting back like, you know what Russia's biggest problem is economically now? The ruble is too strong, literally. People are like, do you think they're going to do gas for wheat and gas for oil? No, they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. It's not that they wouldn't do it to further smack the West around, but they're not going to do it because it would strengthen the ruble. And the ruble it's probably stronger than they need. Remember, you got import things you have to buy with your currency, but you got export things people have to buy from you. And when you weigh those things out, you got a sweet spot of where the value of your currency. If the value is too low, it's a problem. If it's too high, it's a problem. So right now, the Russians don't have to take any actions like rubles for gas or rubles for wheat or rubles for any of their other commodities, simply because they're afraid they would strengthen the ruble. And I mean, next thing you know, the ruble's one for a dollar, for God's sake. Let me tell you something. Think about this. If the Russian markets open up, if you want to know who won, let me ask you this. Do you think if the Russian markets opened up and you could buy rubles and you could buy Gazprom stock and all this stuff, well, do you think if everything, they did away with the sanctions tomorrow, all these people with billions and billions and billions of dollars on Wall Street in London, you think that money wouldn't be running for Moscow? You think people wouldn't be like, hey, you guys sell wheat, neon gas, don't you? Nickel and palladium. Yeah. Can I buy some stock in that? Can I buy some futures in that? Can I get a little bit of piece of Russia? How about some rubles? Come on, man. Sell me some rubles. I don't need a lot. Just sell me some rubles. I'd like to get my hands on some rubles. Rubles are valuable. I wish I'd have bought them at 150. So the bottom line is this. Right now, the West knows that they can't end the sanction and open Russia's market because all of their money will go flying, running the people. You think JP Morgan, Chase, all the Wall Street banks, the London banks, you think they ain't gonna be running to get some of that Moscow loot, dude? They're out of here. So the big loss is not just the Gazprom oil money. The big loss is not just the commodities that Russia is selling. It's the paradigm shift. See, before this, remember what they said. Russia is just a gas station with it's a country, it's a gas station. It's a big gas station with an army, right? They disrespected Russia's value. Let me put it this way. They undervalued Russia on the international market. They undervalued the commodities, real things. And they thought, well, we've got trillions of dollars, umpteen trillions of dollars of derivatives and asset-backed securities. That's the only thing that matters. Well, who cares about gold and palladium and neon gas and wheat and things like that, and oil? Well, now, because of these sanctions, the investment world and the speculators now know, whoa, if you want your money to be safe, put it in commodities. And the other stupid move they made is they seized Russia's money. So now the world's like, I got to get my money out of the West, because if they get pissed at me, sanctions could come and they could take my money. So if Russia's market gets opened back up, man, everybody's coming there. There will be a gold rush like, the 1849 in California. There will be a gold rush. Everybody will be going to Russia to try to do some investment, to try to get a piece of Russia when the smoke clears here. And they're going to be leaving the West because they're not going to trust the West money. So the trillions of dollars will be over the long run. The real loss in the economic war is the paradigm shift, where people will no longer value magically made printed money. They will no longer value asset-backed securities and derivatives, and they will value commodities and China, which has industrial power to produce things, so that the speculative capital will run towards real things in the real world, i.e., the old fire stuff, right? What is it? Finance, real estate, finance, something else, and real estate, right? All of that money, that money is going to go towards gold and palladium and oil and gas and industry in China and things of that nature. So the loss was a long-term loss. one that you can't fix. If it's a matter of oil prices going up and down, that's going to happen. It's going to go up and down. And let's be honest, people are talking about the West crash. And here's the thing you have to keep in mind. The U.S. and NATO, and excuse me, the U.S. and EU are huge markets for Russia and China. They're cash cows, right? China doesn't want the U.S. and the EU to be broke because, I mean, if you're selling something to somebody, you don't want them to be broke. It doesn't benefit Russia and China for the EU and the US to be broke because that's their customers. So they don't want them to be broke. However, what I think they're coming to realize is they're not reliable partners. So we're going to try to do business. We're going to try to raise the economic level, for starters, of the global south, of Russia, of Africa, the Middle East, Latin America, the Caribbean, etc. If we raise their economic level, we built our own markets and they're going to be reliable because we help pull them out of poverty. They're going to love us and we can work this thing out and have a good deal. Because remember, what they said is they don't want what is it? They want a fair, how they say this, a fair world order. Like people are like a new world order. They're saying we want a fair world order where everybody gets treated the same, where everybody has the same opportunity, and where somebody doesn't go around the world bullying everybody with their military and with their hegemony over capital. So we're creating a new environment. And so I would argue, to end this thing out, that where the U.S. empire lost this thing was not in the price of gas and not where you see it in the day-to-day dollar. In two places they lost. They lost, number one, where Russia literally, physically took ground that has both resources and people who are experts and specialists and have knowledge and trades and things like that, right? They got gas fields, they got fertile ground for wheat, they got mines, they got all kinds of stuff in eastern Ukraine that will be of great value to Russia. And might I add this, if Russia's already the number one wheat producer in the world, and they take and Ukraine, I forgot what number they are. I heard 8. I've heard anywhere from 2 to 8, but they produce a lot of commodities. Add that to Russia, and now Russia will be even a more dominant commodity power in the world. So that's why I say that ground that they're taking, man, don't underestimate the value of that. Of that. And the other part is the paradigm shift, where speculatory capital around the world is going to want to run towards commodities. It's going to want to run towards industrial power. That's Russia. That's China. The speculative power, speculative capital now wants out of the unpredictable, the arbitrary and capriciousness of Western leaders. And they're seeing that these guys and girls are stupid as a bag of ice anyway. So bottom line, that's it. Let's see what people say. Hey, I got a couple super chats. So Rockfin's over here. Let's look. Somebody, no tips on Rockfin, but that's all right, people on Rockfin. I always hope for some tips, but I love you anyway. We got a couple of super chats, and I got to answer the super chats. Were there questions? Kinky, thanks a lot, Kinky. I certainly appreciate that. Kinky super chats are back, and along with Christine Miller, love you, Christine Miller. Thanks a lot. Super chats are back. I certainly appreciate it. Thank everybody. We got anything? What do we got? All fiat currencies return to zero eventually. It's rare for any to survive more than 51 years. Ours was birthed on August 15th, 1971, when Nixon took us off the gold standard. What else do we have? At Missy, in 2,000 years, no one has proved supernatural, let alone a God exists. When you're going to get around to that? Oh, okay, we're having that conversation, are we? We're having that conversation, are we? No, we're not. What else do we have over here? We've got, you ain't a nobody to us somebodies. Well, thank you very much. I certainly appreciate that. Now I know I ain't a nobody. That's good news. And what Kiel Jones says, what will the shit libs turn in their what will the shit libs turn in their Ukrainian flags for next? That's a good question. Well, you know how that works. And what it'll be is this: the current thing. And how will you know that Newton faith is believing something you can't see? The current thing, you'll know what it is. Just look for the sheep. But I guess because like Kiev and all this, they got to pronounce it different or whatever. Is it sheep, Shiep, whatever. With the sheep, you know what's happening with them. You know where they're going when you look at their social media accounts and you see a little circle around them that says, I did whatever I was supposed to do. That's the current thing. Or there's a flag, whatever country they're supposed to be whatever they're supposed to be sorting. So for the sheep, just all you have to do is look at their social media accounts, and whatever circle is around that, whatever flag is around that, that's the current thing. And you'll know this is what Ukraine is in for now. That's Ukraine is, whatever. You've got, somebody said rainbow flags. It was Pride Month or Pride Week or Pride something. So they're all got the rainbow flags up. And, I guess they got to have a rainbow flag. They got to have a blue and yellow flag or something. Those things are starting to disappear. I'll tell you this, though. Let me say this, and this has to do with what we're talking about here. I was in Costco yesterday, filled my car up. Luckily, I got a hybrid. I'm glad I did. Best investment I made, getting 40 miles to the gallon now, believe me. But I went in to grab something, and I'm talking to a friend of mine, and I ran into a longtime friend. We're in a line walking out, and we get to the cash register, and the woman in the cash. So there's somebody in front of us complaining about gas prices, and the woman in front of us is saying, "Yeah, the guy in front of me said that we were better off with Trump, but I don't like Trump. But they're all," and she said, "But I told him they're all nothing. They're all terrible. None of them are good." And I'm like, interesting. I remember when this started, and I went into Costco and I saw people with blue and yellow, literally with blue and yellow pins on, and they had bumper stickers on their cars. Everybody was, "I love the Nazis in Ukraine." And now you go in and people are pissed. They are not happy. You want to piss people off, you make them poor. That's what they're doing. They're making everybody poor. So they're losing. But you know who they ain't making poor? The people in Russia. I talk to people, I have friends in Russia and friends in Crimea, et cetera. And I talk to them and they're like, dude, I mean, things are a little high, yeah, but our shelves are full, unlike ours. And, people are overall doing pretty well. So, and did you know this? Over the last couple of weeks, inflation has been falling in Russia. Literally, inflation's going down in Russia. So again, it looks like we lost this one. I mean, the neocons, and they don't speak for me. The neocons in DC, they've lost this one. And sadly, the people in Europe have lost because they have led these damn people to their economic doom. I will say this. I truly believe that the leaders of the US, and particularly the leaders of Europe, should be held criminally responsible. That the people of Europe, once these governments fall, and damn, they will fall, the Olaf Scholzes and the rest of these mutts, once their governments fall, I believe the people in these countries should demand that they are held criminally responsible, that there are trials. These are crimes against humanity. You have a country with a powerful economy like Germany. These people, the citizens have a right to make a living and earn a living and feed their families. And you throw that damn thing to hell, the whole economy, just because of Joe Biden. This guy don't even know what day it is. He doesn't know his name's Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Victoria Nuland, these vicious ghouls come to the European leaders, and they're like, "Hey guys, we need you to destroy your economy." And these people are like, "Sure, what do we give a shit about these people for? They mean nothing to us." I believe in the future, the time is going to come when people in Europe are going to say, who did this to us and why? But they already know the answer. And they're going to say von der Leyen and Schultz and Draghi and all of these people and Macron, they're going to say, you have wiped out an economy that was built over the course of centuries. Granted, it was built taking advantage of people all over the world through empires, but that's another story. It's there. However it got there, there's strong economies there. They got industry, they got services, they got you name it, and all that stuff is going straight to hell. They threw it all out the window just because Joe Biden told them to do it. I believe the time will come. I truly believe this. When people are going to recognize what situation they're in, they're going to say, how the hell did we get here? And they're going to say, hey, Russia, will you bail us out? Russia's going to be like, My fingers is in my ear. My fingers are in my ear. Can't hear you. Can't hear you. Sorry, we're over here. We got to pump some more raw materials to China right now. We don't have time to talk to you. They're going to have nobody to bail them out. And they're going to ask, how the hell did this happen? What did we need to do to avoid this? Well, Russia didn't want much. They wanted us to get the hell off at their border and stop harassing them. They wanted to make Ukraine a neutral country, and for us to stop building all kinds of military shit on their border. Well, why didn't we do that? Because they told us to. We couldn't possibly do what they were asking them to do. And what did we get in return? Oh, we wiped out the economy, the industry, and on the entire continent, and we turned the people of Europe into paupers living off porridge on a good day and gruel on a bad day. And again, I've learned what porridge is, but I don't even know what the hell gruel is. But based on the sound of it, it does sound like something you would eat in a dungeon. I imagine when it comes to gruel, the only place you'd ever eat gruel is in a dungeon. That's dungeon food. If I'm ever end up in a dungeon, I'm asking for gruel. What do you want today, Mr. Nixon? Gruel. Why? I'm in a dungeon. What else? What the hell else would I eat but gruel? Well, Europe's going to be a gigantic dungeon, and gruel is on the menu. You look at it like a guy will come out with like white gloves on and a tuxedo, and hand you your menu, and there'll be one word on it: gruel. And you'll be like, Garçon, I'll have the gruel. And how will you be having that today? Boiled, the same as every day. Thank you very much. And the guy will come back, and he'll come back with a nice little pot of gruel, and that's what you'll get. That's pretty much going to be on the menu. So if you're watching this from Europe and you don't like gruel, you might like start eating it just so you'll acquire a taste for it. So when there's nothing else on the shelves, it'll be a gruely kind of day. Oh, I knew it. Somebody said gruel is simply thinner porridge. There you go. May I have a second bowl of gruel, please, sir? The answer is always going to be no. You get no gruel here. So gruel is thinner porridge. There you go. How's that? How bad is that? Porridge, you'll be so poor that you can't even afford porridge. You get a thinner version of porridge. And every now and then, they'll take a chicken and they'll pass the shadow of the chicken over the gruel. That's the only chicken meat flavor you'll get is chicken shadow flavored gruel. That's what's coming. And at some point, the people of the EU are going to say, how did we go from eating, pan-seared rainbow trout with braised asparagus and sweet potatoes to chicken shadow flavored gruel? Somebody's going to pay for that. Somebody's going to have to pay for that, because the level, when you look at what they're doing, they're wiping out their own economies. The level of this goes beyond incompetence. In that, I'll put it like this. I don't know what you have in other parts of the country, but we have legal terms here, particularly if you want to charge a politician or a person who is a government worker. Misfeasance and malfeasance. Malfeasance basically means a reckless neglect of duty, failure to doing your job, to be so outrageous and over the top in a reckless manner of not doing your job or doing it in a way that brings harm to other people, that brings danger to other people, etc. Malfeasance in office, right? I know this malfeasance of office is to compare malfeasance of office to what the leaders of the EU are doing to their own economy would be to compare moisture to a tidal wave. There is just no human language has terms. We don't have words that can talk about how bad it is what these people are doing. They're like caught in a trap of their own making, where they're like, okay, we're going to do everything we can to get the Russians, and it's destroying their own economy, and it's obvious, and the Russians know it, and everybody's like sitting there saying, hey guys, we're looking at things right now, and you're destroying your own economy. Shut up. You must be a Russian lover. We're like, but we're looking at this thing. You're destroying your own economy, and we can kind of see this. And the only answer is, shut up, you Putin-loving Putiner. So at any rate, thanks for listening to the Gruel channel. Gruel baby formula. There we go. That's what the babies are going to be eating. Gruel flavored baby formula. So let's look at it. Let's get ready to head out. It's getting close to, oh my God, it's 10:30. So I'm gonna get ready to call it quits. I got to get up tomorrow morning. I got a couple of radio shows to do. And of course, I want to get back on here tomorrow. So here's what I have to say. Thank everyone for the super chats. Now that super chats are back, I want to thank the people over on Rockfin. Make sure you go, oh, why am I yawning? God, I hate this. I'm on yawn every show now. Do me a favor. You can look in the show notes. You can see my Patreon, patreon.com/Garland Nixon. That's in the show notes for those of you who can be, it's $1, if it's $3, if it's $5, it's $100, whatever you can afford helps keep the channel going. I've got my PayPal, also information there. It's just my email address, garlandin@gmail.com. If you want to email me and say hi, that's great too. Rockfin, ROKFIN, rockfin.com/Garland Nixon. Remember, on Rockfin, you can become a subscriber. Doesn't cost anything. You can become a member. A member's $9.99 a month. That allows you to see my premium stuff, but it allows you to see everybody. There's a lot of good channels on Rockfin, and a lot of people make premium stuff that you can only see if you're a premium member at $9.99 a month. If you pay that, you can see anybody's premium stuff, not just mine, and it helps me out too. So if you can be a member on Rockfin, that's great. Follow me at Garland Nixon on Twitter. Thanks a lot, everybody. Kinky, Chicken Patty. Chicken Patty and I are tight like this, and Kinky and everyone. Here's the thing. People are talking about that I need moderators. First of all the people, I don't have the bots right now. Everybody's really wonderful. But if somebody wants to be a moderator, email me, garlandin@gmail.com. I'd love to have moderators. Need some moderators. I don't even know what the hell I'm doing, but I'll figure out how to make you a moderator. garlandin@gmail.com. If you're on regularly and you want to be a moderator, let me know. Thanks a lot. And don't forget Rockfin. You got to join Rockfin simply because these masters might at any given day just say, Garland's tell a little bit too much truth, and that cannot be accepted. And, hey, and don't forget, pretty soon, you know what everybody's going to be saying. And don't forget, get your monkeypox shot. Did you get your monkeypox shot? And you get like a little monkey thing to circle around your and an emoji with a little monkey on it that says, I got my monkeypox shot. So be ready for that. Be ready to get your monkeypox shot. Bill Gates says you got to get one.